I'm doing this episode from my car, so you're gonna have to bear with the sun, bear with whatever noise you have, and I'm okay with it, so it's all good. Welcome to the KEW Exchange, where knowledge through experience transforms to wisdom. I'm doing it with my good friend Marc Winn. Well, he's become my good friend, and we are going to discuss the art of being connected. Um, Marc, I was introduced to through a friend of mine, Mary Ellen, and Marc is one of the most interesting human beings I think I've ever met. He probably could play. He probably could play the guy on that beer commercial. The most interesting man in the world. Marc, why don't you give the world a little bit of an intro to Marc?
I'm not sure I can quite speak to that. I'm bored of myself, so yeah, I'm a community builder. I live in a small island nation called Guernsey, which is a little country of 63,000 people in between England and France. I grew up in an entrepreneurial family. I built I can see the comments coming up now.
Yeah.
Hi Raquel, all of the wonderful people I've had Skype calls with, Zoom calls with recently. I'm I built a business in my 20s with my brother, and learned a lot in the process about alignment and being connected to my own truth and path. And then I coached and mentored a lot of entrepreneurs in building businesses that were more aligned to who they were. And then I got very passionate about scaling alignment of community and using kind of the humble coffee cup as a mechanism for social transformation, which is, in every community, there are people with challenges, there are people that are isolated, and essentially bringing people together under shared purpose, shared challenge, and connecting people with story and possibility and each other is really a mechanism for creating change. And if we think about how separated and isolated the world is right now, we need a new story of connection more than ever before. And I suppose my specialism is I'm into disseminating ease with individuals in conversations like this, and with organizations and with communities, and through literally thousands of conversations over years, I've managed to live into my gift, which is around how do we use space to help people connect with each other, because we live in the era of struggle porn, and it's the difference between day-to-day productivity and productivity over a decade. Day to day, you need to work hard and struggle and push to get things done. Over a decade, you require leaps of imagination, and my specialism is holding space for those leaps through the medium of hanging out. So we're going to hang out today, and hopefully, struggle will dissipate. And for some reason, I'm quite good at that.
What's ironic is, as you're explaining yourself, I'm reliving our conversations that we've had, because I'm one of those
nightmare type way.
No, you know what? Not at all. For me, it's ironically funny at this point, because it's almost like watching the Monty Python in my own life. Because it's so ironic. I sit back and I'm like, I really was that person, and I'm still a little bit of that person. I'm working through it, and I'm learning how to be lazy, right? And that's fine. We call it ease so that people understand better. But I'm working on slowing down and actually living that, instead of just being this. I'm going to project it out a decade, 2 decades, 3 decades, 4 decades, which is what I've always done. I've always built with the infinity mindset, but I've always been in that day-to-day grind that, like you say, of that hustler mentality, and I'm overworking everything. And yes, Kelly, yes, 100%. He is the king of disseminating ease. Uh,
Kelly's very good as well, I would say.
Yes, yes. Kelly has that on lockdown also. Hey, David Pushkin. Um, it's David's from the UK actually, I believe, if I remember correctly. You should meet David. David's a good guy. Um, One of the few people I haven't introduced you to yet, I guess. Uh, as I flood your schedule full of people that need ease. Um, it's amazing though, because in our on out in our wow in our hour long conversations, it's we just laugh. Like, it is the most enjoyable conversations that I've ever had in my life with anyone. Right? And I don't think I could ever come in person because I wouldn't know what to do with myself. I'd be smiling too much. My face would hurt.
I'd say you need to get out more.
Yeah, probably. But I'm sure I do, right? So I'm sure I need to get out more. I mean, it's COVID, so the U.S. is a little backwards on things, but that's okay. Yeah, you're right. I need to get out more. I do. But it's funny because through our simplified conversations, because we talk about deep stuff, but you have a way of breaking it down to such an easy level of understanding, and you really go after what is it, Albert Einstein that said if you know something well enough, you can explain it to a 6-year-old or a 3-year-old or whatever it was. You've perfected that.
That's because you really I'm a 5-year-old.
Well, there you go, right? So I guess that probably clarifies everything. I mean, I think this is the end of the show. But it's amazing. It really is amazing how much just having conversation shifts everything, right? That holding that space and sharing that space to allow ourselves to just have a conversation with no objective, no plan, no agenda, and just through conversation, everything changes in the matter of the hour. For both of us, I think. I mean, I think I'm having an impact on you in some ways, other than just flooding your calendar. I think I'd like you to explain a little bit more about. I'm never going to be able to pronounce the name of your island correctly, so I'm not even going to try. But explain a little bit more about how you're building community there, and how you looking to schedule community there. Schedule, not scale, not schedule. Sorry.
Yeah, I mean, it started off in 2014 where we launched a TEDx conference to. We brought 100 people together and we asked, how do we make Guernsey the best place to live on Earth? And 100 people showed up. We stuck a dozen people on stage to answer different aspects of that question. And then that night we launched a movement to make Guernsey the best place to live on Earth by 2020. But really it was around a space of all of those kind of people who felt isolated and alone, that held, like imaginal cells, held a story of possibility for the community could come together and gather and no longer feel alone. And that through community that those people would start to collaborate and build things, and that would form, giving birth to a new culture. And we did 9-10 of those events, and then I had maybe 6,000 coffees, and really it was just about seeing people and surfacing dreams. And in the beginning it was just like we had this permission granted stamp, and we used to just stamp it and give people permission they didn't need to solve the challenges they were deep down passionate about. And over time that builds into momentum, we're so longing for a different kind of connection and community. A return to the village, I would say, is we're kind of biologically designed, and we've started to develop and learn and adapt and iterate processes for bringing community together and helping people find purpose. We're kind of developing a blueprint, which we probably got wrong, but a blueprint for, because that feels like hard work for me, but my wife likes creating things like that, and that's her passion. A blueprint for for the social fabric, to start, I don't know if many of you've seen the something like The Social Dilemma, which is how we're algorithmically being separated from each other. My passion really was about how do we start to change the algorithm and bring people back to the village. And so I think through a lot of prototyping. So Guernsey in COVID has emerged as one of the most cohesive communities. We're in lockdown now because we've just had a small outbreak, but we had 7 months of last year with no restrictions and festivals and all the community together. And we really work hard as a community, as a cohesive whole, to eradicate COVID. And so there's a level of cohesion here, which was always here even before we started the work. So we're kind of, because small communities are in some ways much more cohesive, but we're starting to really decode what it means to reweave the social fabric back together. And Guernsey is one of the leading jurisdictions in the world in terms of how it's dealt with COVID so far. And that could be complete coincidence to the work we've done, or in part because of it, or who knows? I don't care. I just have fun bringing community. People keep asking me, "Do you measure what you do?" I said, "No." You just enjoy doing it and trust that it delivers. And I think we're so outcomes focused, and the world is all about outcomes. And again, if you want to, it's that notion of, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. And this is really where time and space and connection really holds value. And as soon as you start thinking about the outcome, you miss the depth. And so and so we trust that strong relationships in any life, in any organization, in any community, is the mycelium of the soil that allows the growth to occur. Yeah, there are people all over the world that are kind of good at that alchemy of bringing together, of which you're actually one of them, as you just like to do it in a struggle-based way. From your car.
From my car.
Rather than hanging out in a coffee shop having fun, right?
Well, I mean, you've taught me. I'm in Florence, so I'm in the piazza in Florence. That's all that matters. And it's changed everything. It just has, right? Just simplification and just breaking that ease. And I'm not struggling as much. Yes, I still struggle. Getting there, right? It's a lot of reprogramming. But I'm really getting out of the damn way. Like, I really am in the way a lot. Like, I'm really in my own way. Like, more than anything. And it's so I want to go a little bit more into this real quick, and then we'll go into the rest of the conversation. Like, when you went to Genesi, is it Genesi?
Guernsey.
I'm never.
I like the idea of Genesi. That's a new town.
Well, okay, so we're creating number 2. Okay, so when you went there, was it already established with the population, and then you just started implementing ways, or was there nobody there?
No, I mean, I'm from there. So I was born. So this is about, investing in the village that I'm from, and which is always, that can be a challenge, because you have to face your whole story and face your whole and so be step into who you are rather than who the community thinks you're supposed to be. So there's a lot of, as I said, so my work is standing on the shoulders of giants, and there are so many amazing leaders in this community, and so there's my gift is I see the potential that exists. So in essence I do nothing, and I've done nothing here other than day by day give people the mirror. And there's just a few of us that really believed what our community could be, and lived into it, and just that spread like a virus. And I think in 2020 I think the bulk of the population has now realized through this meme that's emerged called Guernsey Together, which is kind of has now realized what we're capable of as a community, and we've seen such incredible beauty and connectedness and mutual support from the leaders right at the top through the whole of community together. I know we've got problems like everywhere else, but I'm a catalyst, so in essence I'm not really part of the building or the reaction. I'm just a flag waver, and I have been for a long time, and I just believe what we're capable of as a community, and who knows if that's made a difference. But our community was always great. I've always believed in it. In part, I've been frustrated by it a lot in my time, but then now I've fallen more deeply in love with it as I've really connected to it and invested in it. But who knows? It's it's a magical story. This place, this essence of this place. I think someone called it once in a conversation like the pineal gland of the earth, and I thought that was a really interesting way of. We're going to see these communities emerge in COVID around the world that you're seeing with New Zealand and other places where, for some reason, there's an extraordinary amount of connection in communities that can adapt to chaos in ways that most communities can't currently. And some of that will be through natural historical culture, and some of that will be because of the work of change makers within those communities, which are a product of culture anyway. I would say you get the leaders you are, and people here love where they live and want to do something about it. They care, right? And that is a product of the culture. I'm a product of growing up here, so this place or this culture creates people like me and the many others that care enough to create this cohesive story that we're in. But I think what I've learned more than anything is this lies in the fabric of every community in the world, and there's nothing that happens here that cannot surface everywhere. And every human being has good days and bad days, and I think if you can create the environment where people live more good days than bad days, then you're going to get the best out of people, and the system and things like that. And so really it's around how can you create higher vibration in community, and it's not, if you take it seriously and focus on what's wrong rather than what's strong, then it's really difficult.
I almost feel like within the next decade, you're going to be handing that blueprint that your amazing wife is putting together, because that's too much work for you, as we discussed. That what she's doing all the hard work and the work putting it together is going to be handed to the UN, right? Like it's going to be the governments around the world and say, maybe it's time to try something that actually works for humans.
Well, I would actually say, looking to government is part of the problem. Looking to the UN is part of the problem, and that this is the issue. Going around hanging out with your neighbor and asking if they're okay is the ultimate political act of system transformation, right? We're looking to try and solve this from the top. And I would see it as an abject failure if I ended up talking to the UN. Because that's like getting on a plane and doing something, but it speaks to the powerlessness that everyone's feeling, right? Right. It is this story of this being, something that can be solved by the other. The very small number of people that are in control. Where in truth it's about, as my good friend and fellow misfit Pam Warhurst, MBE, would say, it's about the mass scaling of small actions. And that's why I think, the coffee cup is like a nuclear weapon, because, a trillion cups of coffee in a slightly deep, you're talking about a mass transformation of the world. And so, it seems like a really daunting, big top-down problem, but in essence, it's a really easy bottom-up solution, which is who are the few people I have in my life right now, and how can I be in more meaningful relationship to them, and what do we do together when we're in more meaningful relationship, and how do we scale that? And you don't scale it by trying necessarily to build anything. You scale it by living it, and then other people do the same, and it spreads like a virus, if you can use that word right now.
That might be a little. It's okay though. I think the world has shown how strong that is. So wait, so you're saying that we need to change? I don't know. That seems like a lot. I mean, you're asking me to change. Wow, I have to like care about somebody, but I don't know. Do I have that capacity? How do? So okay, so I'm being a sarcastic ass, right? This is just what I do, and so when I look at this and I look at changes within, and I look at we need to be the living embodiment of what we believe and what we want to put into the world. We need to be the change that we want to see in the world. We need to. How we start this is by relating to those people closest to us, mm-hmm. and building stronger bonds and building community within. And then from there, it starts going from the bottom up, because those are the masses that actually vote people into potential power, right? Perceived power.
Yeah, but I think this isn't a sacrifice thing. Right? I'm not asking people to suffer. Like, most people feel good when they help someone, right? Or most people feel good when they're having fun together, right? This is not about the mass scaling of suffering or sacrifice, right? I think this is where a lot of change making gets it wrong. This is about joy and love and care and connectedness, which fills your own cup. It's not like, we're so busy, watching Netflix or smoking or drinking or checking ourselves out from, but the wonder drug is connection, right? This is ultimately what we're chasing. And so, I'm only saying that it's the mass scaling of having more fun and being more connected. It is not the mass scaling of sacrifice and struggle. It is the mass scaling of better relationships, better conversations, seeing people, hearing people, having fun with people. That is what changes systems. It's not trying to break them down. And this isn't. I'm not asking anyone to suffer here. I'm just saying, good vibes spread. Kindness spreads. If you're kind to someone, or you wave hi to someone, or you give someone an hour, they'll likely do that to someone else. And it's not like, if it's good, it'll spread. If it's struggle, it'll be in resistance. So that's what climate change is. All of these big issues we have in the world, they lie at, if you think about the link between overconsumption and something like climate change, ultimately the solution to climate change is not to fight overconsumption. The solution to something like climate change is to feel connected enough to no longer need to overconsume, right? It's the solutions are a lot simpler than we realize. Or something like COVID, actually, if the whole world went inside for 2 or 3 weeks, it'd be a lot less of a problem. It's not something we need to run around and solve. It's just let's just chill out, and it'll not fully disappear, but it'll dry up. And it's about space and time.
So I'm gonna now. Are you talking about deeper, real connection? Or are you talking about light, fluffy connection that's inauthentic? Or are you talking about deep, authentic connection? I'm making you work today, Marc. I'm making you work.
I mean, it's about a feeling, right? So you can have a deep conversation and it still be contrived. So it's around, connecting to head, heart, and soul. Silliness and ridiculousness can be, as one of my good friends and mentors always say, it can be a door or a window, right? It can be a wall or a window, door or window. So, are you doing these things for people to truly see you, or are you doing these things to push people away? And it's the same So it's about living into truth and to who you are. I think, part imp. And so silliness is silliness is the divine expression of mischief is the divine expression of who I am. That might not be the next person. There's no kind of one size fits all. It's just about, rolling with your own truth and getting out of your own way, as you described earlier, and just being you and feeling comfortable about being you and grounded in who you are, and taking up off the pressure of trying to be someone you're not, and just to surrender to the world and say, I'm done. I can't hold the energy of being someone else. I'm just ready to see the perfection in my own imperfection, and just move forward from that place.
So, all right. So I want to show the world your magic, right? Because we do this every other week, and we talk about me and my great wonders of how I make my life so much more difficult than it has to be. So I'm a special breed of interesting. So okay, so there's a circumstance that I'm going through that I'm trying to let go of stuff, right? And that's where That's where I'm getting stuck of letting go of things. So
did you say you were trying?
Yeah, I was. So
I mean,
okay,
just go and take a nap. It's easier than trying.
So here's the thing, right? My mind says I need to try and rationalize it. My soul says you need to let it go, right? And my heart says, screw you, you're in pain, right? And that's the levels. So can you just explain your magic of how stop trying and just do?
Yeah, I mean, I think.
Yes, Kelly. Yes, I hear this every other week. I hear this every other week for an hour.
Yeah, I mean, I think, and you said your heart was in pain, and I think, ultimately, if you feel good, things just let go, right? So rather than the process of trying to deal with it or perceive it,
I love my people, by the way. Just so you know, I love my people. Love them, adore them.
So I think it's easier to face something from high vibration than it is from low vibration, right? So you can't solve a problem at the level of consciousness that created it. So so the trick is, if it feels painful to face something, then you're not in a high enough vibration to face it, or it's going to be very difficult. So the trick is to focus on building the wave of feeling good first, and then to use it to face the story, and then the wisdom arrives. And so if you're trying to face a story or release something from a place of, I'm tired, I'm really in it right now, whereas if you try and face something or reperceive something on top of a mountain on holiday, suddenly the perspective, the wisdom arrives in a different way. And so it's really around, whereas a lot of people use high states to escape life rather than, and then try and face things in low states. It's actually the opposite. It's ideal, which is when you're in low state, just ignore everything. And then when you're in the higher states, then is the time to actually face things. And so yeah, it's I kind of keep a trigger list, and I observe sometimes when these triggers happen in my life, and I close it and leave it. And then next time I'm whipping up a storm of magic, I then open the list and say and then the ability to shift it. And so naturally in conversations with me, because I use humor, but humor is a tool for vibration shift and this kind of play energy, but it's really around the power to raise the vibration, and then you can still, it's easier to have fun facing story than it is to take someone's story really seriously. But the truth is, I'm not being glib about it or anything like that. It is just the simple concept of reperceiving exists, and wisdom is much easier to access in high vibration than it is in low vibration. And we all have different ways of getting in high vibration, but the point is face the story in high vibration and don't try and resolve it in low vibration.
So basically, sleep until you're in high vibration.
Or like whatever works for you, right? It's like, what's the easiest way that you have to get into high vibration, right?
You only have so many hours available on your schedule. So I mean, I don't know. I don't know. I'm flooding your calendar to begin with.
Well, I mean, but it's like, so I'm exploring this year. It's my act of creativity this year is to because I'm stuck on my island and I haven't left for a year, and I was getting a bit some of that locked in feeling. I said, my kind of playful creation for the year is to live in the holiday feeling, even though I can't go on holiday for all year, because I know that on holiday there's that sense of liberation and freedom. So I'm like, okay, how can I play with this to allow this energy to move and allow to be, so I'm, I'll start Monday with a massage or hanging out, and I'm constantly playing with myself to say, how do I feel like I'm on holiday every day, even though I'm in isolation or in lockdown this week. And so the inflatable jacuzzi is outside that we popped up for the kids to have it. And when I'm taking the kids to school, I'm not mentally taking them to school. I'm taking them to the kids club on a holiday, and then I'm listening to Madonna on the way back, singing Holiday and things like that. And I'm just doing lots of fun, small things for 5-10 minutes a day, or whenever I can think about it, to just shift the vibration, because that makes me laugh. Now, in spending time with loads of others, there's always a way that each individual, they can reconnect with that side of themselves, that high vibration of themselves, and it's different for everyone. It's like every individual is a canvas, and you and I have fun and laugh together, and things like that. But what makes you laugh or what makes you shift into high vibration is different to everyone else. And I think, but the point is, we all have this capacity to instantaneously feel better if we hit a favorite song or reminded of a favorite place or something. And it's that capacity to just shift the energy first before anything is done. Move to that place of high vibration where the decisions disappear, the doubt disappears, the pain disappears, and then face life from the big, I always say build a wave first and then ride it. Don't splash around and struggle in the flat water. And just, this really isn't about avoiding life. It's about living life and facing it to the full.
Right, the best way possible.
But not making it too hard to do that, right?
Right. Just not making it easier. Making it easier on yourself with ease. What I've learned through our conversations is one of my big things is connection through conversation, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I always knew that I was an auditory person, and I always knew that I get more out of communicating with people, and I get a lot out of communicating with a lot of different people, different perspectives, having high-level, low-level conversations, laughing conversations, no matter what it is, right? But I've really embraced that now, and I'm looking at it much differently now, because I'm coming from more of a soulful place than I am a mental place.
Mm-hmm.
I used to look at calls with these agendas, and we have to accomplish this, and this, and as you see, right, my intros now are just like, you guys need to talk, because I want it open for imagination. I don't want there to be an agenda. I want you guys to figure it out on your own while you're talking, right? Because from you, I've learned that playfulness of just building a genuine, authentic connection from nothing, right? And again, somehow you're seeping into my mind, and it's really working. I don't understand it, but it's pretty good for the guy who works the least hard I know. Yeah.
Well, part of working least hard is to possess people's minds, so you don't have to have as many conversations.
Well, right. That's the thing, right? But it really does work, and I'm loving it, right? Like it truly is magical, and it's working for me. And my magic is coming out when I'm talking to others now, on more of a regular basis, right? I'm not fighting it as much, and I'm not fighting releasing things as bad. Yes, I'm still trying, but not as hard, right? And it was funny because you said to me, you're like, you struggled to die, and now you're struggling to live. So why don't you just live, right? but it's funny because you're right, and you're right about everything, but it's the way you say it that it zings me, right? Like it hits my brain and it just sinks in.
Yeah, and I think, I think there's a big part of my life where I describe myself as a duck, where it appears easy on the outside, but I was really paddling underneath, and I think it. And so, in many ways, I've been there. I know what that sense is, and I also know how pointless it is. Pointless it is as well. And I think, I think through thousands of conversations, each conversation, in some ways, hopefully I've supported people, but each conversation supports me in some way. And I think one of the great things about going out there and connecting with people is the beautiful two-way dance each conversation is. So you can read a book and learn something, and you are, I suppose, but it's a one-way conversation. Whereas if you truly connected with others, this mutual learning space that appears, and this wisdom that arrives over time. And if you cultivate, diversity of connection, breadth of connection type, and exploration, then it's profound how much it can transform you over time. I always say like 50 coffees can solve any challenge, if you're willing to step into it, and move towards that space. And it doesn't, because it's about, everyone says it's who you know, what you know, rather than what you know, right? And what I really try and say is, well, if you get to know a lot more people and you get to know them really well, that can take you anywhere.
It's amazing because, and what's really okay. So what's really ironic is our conversations are the most lighthearted, most fun conversations ever, and I've had the most amazing epiphanies coming out of it on a much higher level, right? In all my businesses and everything that I'm working on and building in my life, and all these ambitions that I have, and it's forcing me to slow down and not work as hard. It's not even intentional. Like you put a spell over me that's forcing me to work less, and it's great. I love you for it.
Well, I would change that. You're allowing yourself to work less.
I'm allowing myself.
All I'm really poking is the futility of some of the effort that you're putting into life. It's a lot of us, for all the right reasons, get trapped in a giant hamster wheel, and that we find it hard to see on our own. And then, if some chump just comes up and shines a torch to say, any reason why you're in this hamster wheel? How's that working for you, right? Like a 5-year-old might. And then, whereas if a cross adult came and said it, you'd be resistant. And but if like an impish 5-year-old say, any reason why you're in that hamster wheel? Where's it taking you? Then people can laugh at themselves and start to let go. And so I have a playful and gentle and a way of sharing what I see and feel, but that's just a kind of something that a gift that's evolved in me over time. But again, it's about I often call it like the 20-year shortcut is I think truly understanding why you're doing what you're doing, and like where after everything is done that you're doing now and you've finished everything, what are you going to do then, right? And what is the essence of life, why are you here? And often people have never really inquired and never really deepened into the reasons for existence, the story of their soul or whatever, and are spending a lot of time and energy and effort, as my good friend AJ Leon would say, living some other dude's life. There's a process that people can go through just to give themselves time and space to inquire what really matters. And What am I really here to do? And how do I want to feel? And to start living into that feeling today, even just small ways. It doesn't need to be blow your life up or anything like that. It can just be I commit to having fun or being true to myself for 5 minutes a day. And that builds. Um, Speechless. I like it.
I think I'm thinking, right, and it's just coming to me. It's like this whole, it's making sense to me. And after a couple months of going through this, and being laughed at and laughed with and laughing a lot, it's and we also laugh at each other. So it's not only about me, right? Like we both catch each other at times, and like truly being connected really is about finding what brings you to that highest vibration with the least amount of effort.
Yeah.
And that just sunk in, by the way. This wasn't rehearsed. Like that literally just sunk in on live.
Right, can we go now?
Yeah, it's time to go.
He's a very slow learner.
But it makes sense now. Like everything is so much easier when at the higher vibration. And so, wow, okay. It makes more sense. It just all makes sense now. Like an epiphany live on screen. Great. Once again, I seem to do this quite often. It's amazing though. It really. Oh, I'm frozen now. Am I frozen on my side or your side?
No, I can see you.
Oh well, then it's just frozen on my side and I can't see anything. So great. It's interesting because so what we've got to find is what brings us to the highest vibration, allows us to enjoy things and be the happiest that we can be, and then trust in ourselves and in the universe that the solutions will present themselves when we're at the most highly functioning level possible. And what I did was I just took what you do and made it hard.
Well, let's be fair. I make aspects of my life hard as well. It's it's a continual process. I'm the observer as well as the practicer, and I'm better at observing than I am necessarily at practicing all the time. I have 3 young kids, and who do the impish thing to me. Here you are, Daddy. You've not dealt with this, and I'm like, oh. So I'm learning as I go as well. But whenever I forget all the time. I think all that changes in life is that what took me decades to remember sometimes takes me hours or minutes. But yeah, I get lost like the next person, but I don't worry about it too much. If I do, I'm like, oh, that's clever how I got lost that time. My ego is exceptionally, good at taking me off the path, but it's part of me. And I say, well, it's like, I'm the one trying to do it blindfolded and my ego's doing it, so it's like, why am I trying to win against myself? It's just, I just celebrate every time I get lost and say, well done, that was pretty clever how you came up behind and got me into the struggle story again. And I'm like, and yeah, again, you turn it into a game of like a fun board game where the ego keeps pushing, changing the track to the direction that isn't in line, and you keep going off, grabbing onto it. Try not to hold life loosely in as many ways as possible, and to trust. And I get, I've spoken to so many people over the years, and I get from the perspectives that some people exist in. It's not an easy process to start that, and it takes time to build up momentum. Because you can get people who are really, trapped in very difficult circumstances, and it isn't something that can spontaneously. I mean, I was always inspired by people like Nelson Mandela, who spent 27 years in solitary confinement, and I'm like, well, if he could have such grace, There has to be something in about how you perceive life from any situation. And this is kind of Viktor Frankl's book on Man's Search for Meaning. It's very, those are the kind of go-to things. And that was from concentration camps. And they say, well, if those guys can find something, meaning in situations that I could not imagine, what am I going on? What am I going on about to think my, glorious life in the super wealthy tax haven or something? In this community that I live in, the incredible thing. What am I really struggling about? In relation to how people like that found grace. And so, it's around the stroke of insight is always available, and it is always available to me. And realizing that can shift in a moment of and it's been found. People have found grace in far tougher circumstances that I would ever live through. Those are the people I feel inspired by and guided by. And I always remember I spent a bit of time growing up in Africa as well. There are people really with nothing, and they're living from a place of incredible joy. And I walk around kind of the rich countries where I'm from, and everyone's like miserable, and I'm like, we're really missing something.
We're missing out.
What is developed world? And and I really inspired to question a lot of common thought, and those questions came from a lot of decades in my own story where I felt lost, I've found my way home more of the time now. That's all that's happened. I was lost for a long time.
So I don't know. I'm actually speechless. Like, I don't even know what to say right now. Like, I'm at a point where it's getting too hard. So I don't even want to try. It's amazing to me how you've helped me break down and really shift what connection means to me. I understand it to be what brings me to the highest vibration, the quickest level, right? And those that I interact with, if they're not supporting me going to the highest level in those interactions, then those are interactions that I need to have less frequently. And
or reperceive.
Yeah, somehow I need to work on that part of it. That's the part of it I'm still having trouble with, is taking circumstances that might bring me down in one way, and how do I re-perceive it so that it's in a healthier or a higher vibration way. And that's something that I've always struggled with, but never explained it that way.
Yeah, so the thing would be, how can you arrive to those conversations in higher vibration?
Talk to you first every time.
There's nothing our conversations create that you cannot create yourself, right? That's right. People wrongly associate this with, just because I'm someone who holds a space, but the energy is for everyone. It doesn't, and like, you'll have ways to access high vibrations yourself, as I just hold that essence reasonably well most of the time, but there are others who do it even better than me, and there are other and do it in different ways, or some people embody joy, or some people embody love, or some people so it's really around how do you feel into those states, and how do you have mentors and or things in your waypoints in your life so that you can tune into those vibrations as and when you need them.
Well, I mean, it goes like you said, mentors and associates, and I guess a lot of it has to depend on who you surround yourself with. But then at the same time, a lot of it has to do with what you find within yourself, right? And how you allow yourself to be connected in your own ways. And And that takes practice to find what works best for you, right? Because each individual has their own way of getting connected. You know, what I've realized is, for me, it's about having fun again. For me, it's about, you know, the little things. Like, you know, you told me about the piazza. You know, you reminded me that the piazza in Florence, is my ideal place to be, which I completely forgot about. It's been over 20 years since I've been there. And now when I put on Italian piazza music, I feel like I'm there again. When I drink cappuccino, I feel like I'm there again. I've actually been finding myself buying cappuccino more because I'm listening to that music, which means I've got to find it, but I do buy it. And it's, but I'm there and I'm spending time there and I'm raising my thanks, Hallie. I'm raising my vibration and I'm naturally finding my ways to lift myself up now. And the tricks that you've taught me through our almost comedic satires at times, it's allowed me to see past myself and allowed myself to move out of the way of it.
But also, it's how easy it can be, right? I mean, you're putting on a piece of music and buying a cappuccino, and that's becoming a transcendent act, right? It's like, you know, some people like talk about 2 hours of meditation and
Right.
like that kind of, and I'm like, man, that sounds like hard work. You know, the spiritual suffering gang. I like, and it's like, God, if go easy on yourself, it can be something as subtle and small as changing your cup of coffee and reperceiving it, and then using that 10 minutes you have with yourself in a different way, and that can be the way that, you know, rebirths the path of yourself that you've lost. Because, you know, when you were 3, you didn't think about living that way or living like that. You know, it's like, it's innate. And, you know, the story of society and parents kind of coaching us out of this way of living in full expression, that, you know, ultimately we have to find ways to return to where we started.
So maybe we need to start calling it the child mindset. Maybe we need to create something called the child mindset, and that's where we need to go back to have freedom of thought and freedom of creation.
Well, I think what's really interesting, the kind of 2 groups of people I really love to observe, and they're very similar. One is kind of really old people, and the other is really young people. And there's nothing I love more than a group of 8-year-olds behaving like children. Right? You know, there's something that happens at the end of life that people give up caring.
Right.
What people think. They suddenly start living. Right.
Living. Right. They finally live.
They act like kids, you know, and there is nothing more warming, heart-opening than seeing, you know, and again in Italy they do this well, where, you know, a bunch of elders sitting in the square, mm-hmm. and they're having a ball, behaving like 5-year-olds, and they're really connected with 5-year-olds. Now, you know, there's this kind of gap in the middle where people kind of wander on this journey of, you know, trying to find the wisdom we started with. And you know, so I think the culture will start to shift over the coming years that get us to realize that, you know, there's that wiser, you know, when I talk about the democratization of wisdom, and, you know, we were in the era of democratization of knowledge, where, you know, Google and everything like that. We're now kind of in the era of the democratization of intelligence, and there's some very smart people in the world doing some very stupid things, and you know, this algorithmic chaos in the US, or you know, we're starting to see that, and what we really need is the democratization of wisdom, which is I think what this channel is trying to do, and what millions of other people are trying to do in the world, which is like, what is the essence of life, and why are we going around such a long-winded way of getting to that place where the old guys in the village just see what life is about again, which is about laughter and conversation and connection and family and community and there you have it at the end of life. And if you look at the beginning of life, it's exactly the same thing. Now, the unwise piece, I would argue, is the kind of intelligent bit in the beginning, where intelligently we all, for all the right reasons, end up in the wrong place. And yeah, and I'm curious as to what's the story behind that, and there may be a very good reason.
But when, okay, so here's a question, right? Because I've never been to Africa, I've never been to the village mentality, right? I've never physically, other than traveling to Europe, going to small towns, but I've never been to like what people consider third world, right? So let's just use a global term for clarification.
Like, Western term, I would say.
Yeah, Western term, right? Yeah, Western term, perfect. Where, at what point in those villages and village mentalities do they have that generational transfer of knowledge and generational transfer of wisdom? Like, the seniors are highly regarded and respected, and they transfer their wisdom down generation to generation, don't they?
Yeah, I mean, if you look at the structure, like we, as part of the Industrial Revolution, we changed many systems. We started to separate kids into schools to teach them. We started to, put our old people into homes to care for them. We started to, for reasons of productivity day to day, we started to make things more efficient. Very clever. Again, very smart stuff. But what we started to farm in single crops, and we started to make things convenient in one dimension, and every decision probably made sense. But in essence, our bodies and who we are have evolved to be in a much more complex system, in much deeper relationship to each other than being separated in all these silos, and in much more sacred relationship to the land than in farming this way or building in this way. And we can all sense in some way that we are disconnected from the way we are wired. And I think if you go to places that are less developed, you will see some of the wisdom that we've thrown away. That isn't to say that we haven't developed some extraordinary things that we need to keep. But understanding that no community or no one way has the solution. It really is about the grand coming together of all of humanity, and we all hold a piece in some way. And the West holds some of the pieces, because some of the stuff that's being created is miraculous, right? The fact that we're having this conversation right now is witchcraft, right? This. And so there's light and shade with it, and it's understanding in that period of democratizing wisdom, what have we lost? What have we lost that really still feels true? And how do we reconnect with the wisdom that we've lost, but also bring in all of these new gifts that we have emerging as a collective, and all of this new incredible creation, but mitigate for the shadow and the struggle and the story. This is Mike multitasking badly.
Okay, so I had a call come in, it froze me, I didn't hear a word you said. But I know everybody else heard you, and I know it's inspired genius. That part I'm not worried about. What I want to do is I want to have a part 2 with you back towards the middle to the end of March, because I think this is another level of a conversation that we can have. And I think that we can go into a little bit more detail specifically about this stuff, because you have a way that you're applying it specifically where, what you're doing in G. I'm going to call it G, because I'm not even going to waste my time trying
the little G.
Yeah, there you go. And I really want to continue that part of the conversation also, because I feel like as much as we're playful and as much as we have fun with our conversations, real solutions do come out of it. And I still want to have fun, and I still want to have playful conversations, and we can still mock me the whole time about how much I still struggle and I'm still trying instead of doing, because I promise in March I'll still be doing that too, but maybe not as much. That's the hope.
So will I. So will I.
Yeah. Well, you know, nothing like a good reminder to see how far you've come, right? So you know, we've got to enjoy that as well. But I want to say goodbye to everybody today. I love the interaction. We had tons of engagement, lots of great people, and I know there'll be more as this goes on. And Marc, thank you so much. I know it's cutting into your family time now, so I don't want to take that away from your kids and your inspirational growth.
Yes.
Yeah. So everybody, thank you very much for being here. I appreciate you all, and this was an awesome conversation. Thank you so much. I'm glad I did it from Florence in the Piazza as I'm staring at a Burger King in my car. Yeah, but that's all that matters.
Thank you everyone for tolerating this this warbling, I think is the best way to describe it. But yeah, hopefully it connected in some way. But yeah, no, anytime I'm more than happy to jump on a conversation with you, because fundamentally, spending time with you is a huge amount of fun. And
it is. It just is. Who would have known that I'm so much fun?
You are.
I know. I realize it. I forgot that for a very long time when I was really trying so hard. I'm kind of done. I really just don't want to try anymore. I'm getting there. You're really breaking through. But yeah, thank you so much, and I appreciate you all. And you know, we'll do this again, and I'm looking forward to it. And Marc, obviously, we're going to talk again, because without my comedic satires, I wouldn't know how to live anymore.
You like to continually grab the electric fence.
Yeah, I do. It's okay though. It's okay. It's growth, progress, not perfection. All right, world. Thank you so much, everybody, and I appreciate you all.